murders tend more often to be but let's look at the case of Baltimore County, which is certainly where the largest number of death penalty cases in this state have been brought in recent years. I mean, does it hold true in your experience that there is no racial component to the decisions that juries make there?
Well, I hate to go back to history here, but when the death penalty was reinstituted in 1978, my predecessor, Sandy O'Connor, instituted a policy that she felt would be completely non-discriminatory. And she said, if I file it in every case that qualifies, then how can anyone claim that I'm discriminatory? And she kept that policy going for 20 years. And therefore, you know, that is why there were so many death penalty cases in Baltimore County in the 80s and early 90s, was because her policy was to avoid discrimination. If she is blind to the race of the victim and blind to the race of the defendant, and we file it in every case, then how can anyone ever say that she is being discriminatory? And in fact, you know, they found that there was no purposeful discrimination. Now the problem is, once you start doing those sheer numbers, things just seem to turn on its head. And while, by virtue of the fact that we were prosecuting so many death penalty cases, it just in a matter of sheer numbers ended up being that more people on death row came out of Baltimore County. Now, you know, John Thanos and Stephen Oken were white, and Oken was the case that I prosecuted. I prosecuted a number of white individuals, namely Perry Everett and some others. But when I came into office in 2007, I said, you know, this policy has kind of gotten turned on its head, because we really aren't now always saving the death penalty for the worst of the worst. And therefore, I instituted a policy of guided discretion, which is what the jurors use. And basically, I convene a committee, we review the case, we decide whether the individual really is the worst of the worst. And as a result of that, we went from trying, you know, 5 or 6 death penalty cases a year to the fact that right now I have one pending, which in fact is a white woman who had contracted out to have her husband killed. And so I believe that while the original policy that resulted in a number of people being on death row was done with the very concept to avoid discrimination, I just think the sheer numbers ended up putting more on death row than anywhere else in the state. And if other places aren't putting anybody on, then it really skews the numbers as far as Baltimore County goes.
So I might follow up on that a little bit. You mentioned, you described a case earlier in which you decided not to pursue the death penalty because the victim's family had asked you not to. The case you were just talking about now is that you previously tried Walter Bishop, right?
Correct.
Who was the actual killer in the contract killing.
Yes.
And you're now doing the case against the wife. Can you describe a little bit what your thinking was in seeking capital punishment in that particular case, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the first one brought in Maryland under the new standards?
Well, both of those cases, Ray Porter owned an Hess gas station in Baltimore County on Joppa Road. He and his wife had been together for many years. The evidence, I believe, will show that she had tried on numerous occasions to hire individuals to kill him. You know, there were some allegations that there may have been some domestic disputes, but there were never any 911 calls, no police reports, no verifiable information that, that in fact, there had been any domestic issues. On the day that he got killed, she hired someone for about $900 to come in and execute him in his gas station. She called the individual, opened the door, made sure that the person could get into the gas station, and he killed him in cold blood. She then tried to blame it on an African American who committed a robbery. Fortunately, the Baltimore County Police Department, within really an hour, did not believe her and immediately turned their attention to this group of individuals. And 6 people were charged. 5 of them have been convicted of contributing to the death of Ray Porter. Carla Porter is the last one left. And I believe that when you, months in advance, plan to kill someone, hire someone to kill them, help them kill them in cold blood, be in the same area when that takes place, even opening the door so the killer can get in. You know, and your biggest complaint is You didn't want to be married to him anymore. Well, you know, we got a courthouse down the street where you can take care of that. I believe that kind of cold-blooded killing is a reason to seek the death penalty. Now, Walter Bishop, a jury decided to give him life. I respect that decision. You know, death penalty decisions are very difficult ones to make. As you can tell, you know, reasonable minds can differ about this issue. But in that case, I felt like the process was important, that the shooter and the contractor in that case, we should go forward with the death penalty, and we'll let the judge and jury decide. And I respect the jury's decision when they make that decision.
The question